All right, Adrian, so let's start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the training session on DevOps Organizational Models Design. We are here with Adrian de Rotours. He's an expert in everything DevOps. Towards the end of the training, we will be hosting a Q&A session in which you are welcome to ask questions regarding the concepts that are going to be introduced. So, without further ado, over to you, Adrian.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for joining this webinar. Well, as you heard, I'm a specialist in several IT technologies and process. Mostly, I started with the traditional part of the technology based on project management, professional, the traditional project management, and the ITIL services. And why I'm sharing with you that? Because starting 10 years before, companies had tried to change and modernize all those processes. Despite some specific exceptions, they are trying to transform the current technology, the existing technology, to a digital platform. So this is specifically the challenge that I needed to face 10 years ago. And for that reason, I started to get several certification and techniques to do it. The topic exactly for today is how to design an organizational model based on DevOps. So after the webinar, the goal will be that you get some concepts, techniques, and tools to implement DevOps into an organization. The other key topic here is that where we are talking about, when we are talking about DevOps, is not only technology. And this is usually a mistake or confusion that we have, because companies start to have good tools to promote continuous integration and continuous delivery and continuous deployment. However, and you will see that the most important part of the organization is the people. The model that we'll use to create structures to work together. In other way, we'll have a good DevOps tool change. We'll have a webinar a few weeks, probably in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember exactly the day, but I was saying that we'll have a good DevOps tool change. However, the people using the tools won't be prepared to do it into a collaborated environment, and they won't have the required skills. They won't be communicating each other as expected. So all that things are really very important to be implemented, not only technology. For that reason, when we are talking about DevOps, we said that culture is one knowledge area, the other is process, and the other is technology. And technology is referring tools and infrastructure, right? So how we'll be able to build a really successful DevOps team into the company, breaking down the typical silos that we have. That will be other point that we'll be discussing. We'll take one company which implemented a really good DevOps team structure. I'm talking about Spotify, defining the different groups. And the most common are the squads, or the teams that we have in an Agile environment, the tribes, the chapter, and guilds. So after the webinar, we'll understand the meaning of these type of groups, and the challenge will be try to implement it in our company. Again, the goal of this webinar will be not only to be reviewing theoretical things. The idea is to share with you some experience and that you try to think in your company and how you could implement the knowledge that we'll be getting today. Finally, I'll share with you the 6 crucial roles that we need in the DevOps structure. And that will be good information because I'm not talking about roles for leaderships and team member. I'll be talking about specific roles considering technical aspects, considering process responsibilities, considering coaching activities as well. Okay, so basically these are the webinar objectives. The topics specifically for the webinar will be reviewing the DevOps maturity model. And you will see if you have some knowledge related to CMMI. DevOps takes the same structure, really it's not similar, it's the same structure of CMMI. However, the analysis over the process is a little different. So you will see that we need to have different stages into the company to implement the DevOps maturity model and the way to do it. The other, I mentioned that, is how to build a DevOps team structure with different aspects. And I'll be sharing with you the different steps to do it into an organization, which is really very, very interesting. So it's related to assembling resources, is aligning business goal. And this term, business, is the differentiator of DevOps, because it's not only technical. And I really like to talk about this point. It's not only technical. If in a DevOps way we don't know the business goal or the business objective of our company, probably we'll be doing an excellent technical job. But DevOps is not only about lead time. It's about business value. It's about knowledge growing and always oriented to the customer, to the business. So we'll be reviewing how to adopt tools. And this is for sure a very important part, right? The tools that we'll be using for the team structure to deliver the system that we need. And after to have a good and a strong DevOps tool change, we need to have the method to measure the results, right? So basically, these are the 4 steps to build a DevOps team. Squads, chapter, tribes, and guilds. Some examples, some way to implement it. And as I said, the DevOps crucial role. And the final recommendation to implement a DevOps model organization. This is wrong. It's not a value stream mapping, so sorry about that. Is the final recommendation to implement an organizational model. Okay, so let's start talking about the DevOps process maturity. And as I said, it's aligned to the CMMI maturity model. And for those one who don't know what is a maturity model, basically it's something that we need to design to assure the quality for the entire life cycle. Is the end-to-end cycle from the requirement definition until the delivery. This maturity model basically is implemented by a huge enterprise. However, in a small enterprise, we could take some part of the process. And the software development teams should adapt the CMMI model to agile practices. And this is exactly what we'll be reviewing. I'm saying that because sometimes CMMI is associated to the traditional way to develop software. However, we could adapt the traditional model to the agile, and it's exactly what we'll be doing now. Okay, so a really quick wrap up about the different stages of CMMI. We have different levels of maturity, starting from the bottom over here. And let me select the laser point to pointing out what I'm saying. Okay, so from the initial to the optimize, this is something that probably you heard about CMMI 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when we are in a situation where we don't have any process, not only defined, the processes are completely unpredictable. It's say we do something in a way, and the next step of the process is completely different, and we don't have any control in place. And each time that we have an issue and a problem, we don't have documentation to resolve it, and we run a reactive mode. Well, this is the initial. In the other extreme of this change, we have the optimize, right? Where we have a continuous assessment. We have all the process completely defined. We are following business objective, and the risk is fully managed, right? So in the middle, we have different options. We can say that starting in level 3, 4, and 5, we could consider a DevOps maturity. Why I'm saying that? Remember that I said that the CMMI traditional maturity model could be adapted to DevOps. Okay, but CMMI 1 and 2 is now covering the minimum pieces of quality that we need for DevOps. So as you can see from defined stages, CMM3, we have the process well categorized and standardized, right, across all the organization. That represents that we could run different type of automation. For example, we could promote a continuous testing. For that, we need to have the testing process well defined. If we were in the managed situation, CMM2, it's impossible to apply any automation. And remember, DevOps is culture, is infrastructure, technology, automation, and for sure processes. So if we don't have process, if we don't have the capability to automate, it's impossible to implement DevOps. So for our analysis, we'll consider only these 3 levels, CMMI 3, 4, and 5. And the columns that we have are the maturity of the process, the automation, as I mentioned, the collaboration and sharing, that are 2 groups specifically related to team building, to design the model for the team structure. So for automation, as I said, we need to have, for the defining stage, some process automated. And we could start, as I said, with continuous testing or with continuous integration. Continuous integration is the way to have all the sources of the code in the same place, with some methods to don't replicate information, to use the last versions, it's to manage versioning, etc. So other automation that we could have at this point is the continuous testing. It's each time that I need to test something, all the use cases will be automated. So I need to push and all the use cases will be evaluated through the tests. I receive the results. Other process that I could have will be more related to the continuous deployment. I'll stop a second over here just to remember you that in DevOps, we have basically the following groups of continuous methods. We have continuous integration related to sources. We have continuous delivery. We have continuous deployment, and we have continuous operation. These are the four automation processes that we need to implement for DevOps. So for sure, if we are in the last stages in CMM5 for process automation, we'll have the fourth processes automated that I mentioned. In the middle, we'll have the measured, because it's very important to collect and analyze metrics. And in the top, we'll have continuous improvement, all the process automated, the metrics to be analyzed. Other key terms here are the self-learning and self-remediation. Okay, so process automation, as I said, is a very important part of the maturity for DevOps. And what about collaboration and sharing? Well, collaboration and sharing, starting from the bottom, take a look on that. It's poor communication. So out of our DevOps maturity. In the managed stage, that we can say, okay, we have some processes, we have some automation. However, the communication, it's managed and coordinated. So it's not, we are not sharing the critical information among the teams. The teams are not autonomous. So again, we are out of the DevOps scope. And the starting point for DevOps is when we are saying, okay, our teams are collaborating, our teams are well communicated, and we have some tool change. And how to improve that? To move the team to the following steps. Okay, we need to create process to collaborate. For example, hackathons, for example, communities of interest. For example, base of knowledge available for everybody to proactively resolve incidents or problems. So at that point, we'll be really in CMM4, where the stage is measured, right? And the top of the situation is when you have a continuous knowledge sharing, when you have individual empowerment. What does this mean? It says that everybody is leading his own responsibility, right? Everybody is promoting new knowledge. Everybody is pushing the rest of the team to get better results. And the effectiveness of this will be tracked and people recognize, etc. So summarizing this slide, which is very important, the goal for you is to use this material to assess your organization and say, okay, we are for process maturity, we are here. So we are in level 3. This is okay. If you are on this region, it's a below 3, certainly you will have more work. But take a look on that. If you are in level 1 or 2, and in your company, the upper management decision is to move to DevOps, implementing a tool, the right suggestion from your side will be, hey, we need first to improve our processes before to buy and implement a tool. Why? Because you will have a tool without process that is more dangerous than don't having anything, right? So if you are from here, from level 3 to 5, we are in a good condition to start the DevOps journey. What you could do is to assess the different levels, and according to the levels, you could prepare a development plan. So again, this is very important to set expectations and to define the right path for the digital transformation. So this is the first thing, right? Is to assess the level of maturity of your company. So after to do that, you will have a good picture about where you are. And right now you could define the way, you could define the right path. And the 3 actions that you have to define, so you could consider these 3 arrows as the DevOps project, and you will have 3 different categories. And the first category probably is to standardize the processes. Remember, usually companies decide to buy a tool, and after that, they will realize that they need more. They need the right people, and they need the right processes. So standardize the process is the first step. When you are okay with the process standardized, you could consider to implement the right tool. However, empower people is not only to train people, because you use the tools with a training, a user training, a key user training will be enough. However, to be in the top of the maturity model, people should be empowered. And empowered represent a drastic change in the leadership structure, a drastic change in the communication way that the company has. So again, I remember once a company, a leader of a company asked me, what is the real duration to implement DevOps? He said, how long does it take to implement DevOps? The right answer is that DevOps, it's a process. It's not a goal. It's a really challenging process where we'll be seeing several improvements and we'll see several benefits for the business value. However, it's not a goal. And the time, probably we could define some time to have some process implemented. However, the end of the story, it's really something that, honestly, after 10 years, I really don't know where is the end, because every day different technologies are supporting the process improvement. Every day new communication techniques are supporting the knowledge sharing. So to be honest with our leadership, when they ask about times, we could respond that it's a continuous improvement way. So summarizing, standardized processes, automate everything. It's implement automation and empowerment people is the way to get the maturity. I remember you that you could write in the chat window your questions, and it would be better if you could do it right now, because it's not planned to interrupt my exposition. However, you could write your questions, and at the end of the presentation, in 20 more minutes, we'll have 15 minutes for questions, okay? So move forward. How we could implement step-by-step DevOps, right? So we have different dimensions to implement DevOps. We have Agile operations. It's the application supported by the team in an Agile way. We have our team developing in Agile. We have some process to collaborate into the team. And finally, we'll have the DevOps for business and DevOps for strategy. As you could see here, we are starting from the operation, from the base of the enterprise pyramid, and on the top we have the strategy. So in the first point, what we could do, we could increase the frequency of releases. And just to give you an example, if in your company we are delivering once a month, or worse than that, it's in the traditional companies, we usually have between 3 and 4 releases a year, right? So if we could split the applications in small pieces and we could assign specific teams to promote more frequent releases, we'll have basically two benefits. The first benefit is the lead time, because we'll be providing improvement to the application, to the customer for sure, in a more frequent way. And the other is, the more releases we have, the more opportunities to detect errors and to learn we'll have. Okay, so the first goal in the Agile operation is to increase the frequency of the releases. From the Agile development, the goal at this point will be to have a solid structure of sources. I talked about continuous integration a few minutes ago. So to deliver a robust and high quality application will depend of the sources and the quality of the sources that they have. So from an Agile development point, the goal is to create a unique repository, and only source of truth, right? For collaboration, which is the third step, and is the third, but for me is one of the most important, because it's to connect development with operation. It's common to see in the majority of the companies Agile teams with a good level of quality having, as we said, frequent releases, having continuous integration, and I could say having continuous deployment as well. But what's happened with the support of the application? You could really run fast from a development perspective, but if you are not running at the same speed in operation, we'll have the famous bottlenecks. So connect development and operation to have a better knowledge of the application will be the key part to be successful. And let me share some experience. Probably you know the application Slack. Slack is not only a chat tool, it's a collaboration tool. And remember that in Slack you could connect your testing tool, you could connect your development or project tool as ALM from HPE, for instance. You could connect your support or operation tool like Service Manager, right? And if you have an incident, you could page all the teams, developers and supporters in Slack, and say, hey, we are having an issue on this specific part of the system. And on the same window, you will be the lines of the job of the part of the software, and you could correct that line, and you could run automatically the testing, and you could promote to production at the same time. So you could realize the benefit to do that, but only you could do that if you have developers and supporters and people from operation connected. Okay. Well, if you are at this stage, I think that you did a great job, because the lead time will be excellent. However, we could improve the quality of what we are doing we could improve our performance if everybody is fully aligned to the business. It's to the value that we are providing with our application, and not thinking only from a technical perspective. This is the next step. This is a level 4 for us. Adding business value, not only adding technical value. Okay. And finally, if all the Agile team, it's an Agile business strategy oriented organization. It's a business, it's something in the near term. It's something that adds value to our customer now or in the short term. However, being aligned to the strategy of the company, from the developer to the director, everybody aligned following the same strategy goal. Okay, we'll be in a DevOps organization, strategy oriented. Okay, so we have 2 ways to implement that step by step, as I mentioned. It's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we could do it in parallel, taking the development and operations side, conducting by a DevOps coach, and applying in parallel all these activities. And you can imagine that it's really very logical, because here you will be working with the development team, with the operation team, and you will be promoting the cooperation between both teams, right? And when you are full aligned, as I mentioned, when you are delivering a really good products, quality products, and you reduce the lead time, and the customer is really happy about the time, you could add the business value to the change, and after that, the strategy. Okay, so this is for you a good implementation path to create a good model, to design a good model for the DevOps structure. Okay, so I think that we mentioned several important parts of the communication. How important is the communication in DevOps? Because as you will see, and I think that I mentioned, DevOps require several individuals' backgrounds. It's we'll need people, for instance, specialists in testings, people specialists in different technologies. Probably will need some type of leadership into the team, because remember that in Agile, the teams are autonomous. So we need to have a good communication each other. The team working is a key criteria for any DevOps implementation. So communication starts to be a critical point. And the problem that we had with the silos was something that we need to really avoid. So, for instance, implementing new features will likely span multiple teams, right? So no single team owns the outcomes of an implemented feature. So what's happened there? It's my part is the design, and the other team will say, my part is the coding, and other team will say, oh, my part is only to build the code and promote to production. And if we are not integrated with a good communication, we'll have for sure inefficiencies, we'll have issues, we'll have error, and we'll have reworks. So communication is key to the team working. And the silos, as I wrote here, is what creates the famous bottlenecks, because everybody's focused on their own job. And the idea is that each time that we have an issue, we'll be working all together, as I mentioned, using Slack as communication tool. Okay? So to promote culture of communication, we'll keep the team focus on the main pain points. Everybody will know how to fix this, and everybody will be committed to do it. And if we share the communication between development and operation, we'll have really the whole picture. What does this mean, the whole picture? It's the end-to-end information. If someone from operation knows really how the development team is coding, and they know how that piece of code will impact into the operation, they could go directly left to the development team and say, hey, please don't do it on this way because you will have an impact. We don't need to wait until the testing, until the deployment. We could detect that in a faster time, right? So rapid deployment, more experimentation. If we have the more release we have, the more experimentation we'll be able to do. So you can imagine how the communication in DevOps, it's really very, very important. And how to implement that, how to make real everything what I'm doing. Everything what I'm saying. Okay, I'll summarize the different steps to really build a success DevOps team structure on these 4 steps. So the first step to start in a DevOps environment is building a successful DevOps team structure, made up of existing resources or with new ones, right? Because we need multidisciplinary skill sets. So this is the first things to consider. If we have a team with only technical experts, probably we'll need to add additional resources having some communication, soft or essential skills, right? If we only have people with good communicators, probably we'll need more people strong in technology or security. We have in the market several webinars related to DevSecOps. So if you ask me about tech skills, programming, testing, design, and security are the most important. And crossing all those skills, we have the communication or facilitation skills. So first step, assembling resources for DevOps team structure. As I said, existing or new experts, and people are most important component of the equation. So starting from the most important, to create a good team structure, first try to build a good team. Please don't start with tools. When you have the right people, aligning business goals for the DevOps team structure is the second step, right? It's to keep focus the team working on business objectives. So for that, we need the management sharing the business objective to the team. And certainly they will add value through the technology and through the knowledge that they have. So as I said, after assembling the necessary resources for DevOps team structure, organization must avoid jumping into implemented DevOps practices. Instead, they must align business goal. This is very, very important. If you don't align the team to the business objective, to implement all the technology that you want will be non-effective. So, okay, we have people, we are aligned, and yes, right now we are ready to adopt tools to start to use it. So when we are aligned, we could start to implement DevOps practices. It's a processes, tools, etc. The last, and not the less important, is, as I said, DevOps is not a goal, it's a process, it's a journey. So after to implement all our DevOps tool chains, we need to be sure to track everything, because the tracking, the monitoring will be the source of the improvement. Okay, so firstly, we review the different maturity model and we assess our company. After that, we detect the different steps to be really mature in our process. And finally, we are reviewing the different steps to build the team structure. Okay, and let's move to something real to understand why different companies started the digital journey. So you're seeing different examples, right? This information is coming from 3 years ago. So I don't have any doubt that Motorola improved their first results in the digital transformation journey. However, 3 years ago, they didn't have a good experience implemented digital transformation. So BlackBerry, Motorola started from the wrong way, and they failed to adapt digital transformation. Why? Because they were focused on technology. They were focused on infrastructure and not in a good team structure design. It's exactly what we are doing now. And in the middle, we have HP or Bank of America, and they needed to integrate legacy and digital. Why? Because the huge structure implemented at the cost to move everything to digital environment. And that was really very important for them, because after that, for instance, HP have been helping and supporting several companies in the digital transformation journey, implementing a hybrid environment. It's a continue using legacy ones and implemented digital transformation for specific modules. And the best example that we have, are Netflix and Spotify, and for sure Apple. For Netflix, I can say that they implement really high value processes for experimentation, something named the monkey arms. It's a they are trying to destroy their system all the time, just to try their resources, right? They do that in a specific time frame where they don't have a high risk. But this is a good example about experimentation. And Spotify implemented a team structure that we'll be reviewing in a few seconds, that is been taken as example for all the companies that would like to have a good digital and collaborating structure. So these are the 3 different results. So let's try to be more similar than Netflix, Spotify, and Apple than what Motorola and BlackBerry did on the past. And we see the difference that to do it. Okay, so what are the squads? What are the squads? So basically, the squads are the same that the team members for Agile, right? Remember that in Agile, we have only 3 roles: the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the team members. For sure, we could have chief of product owner, we could have chief of Scrum Master, but summarizing, we have only 3 roles. Okay, this squads in DevOps is pretty the team. The particularity that we have in DevOps is that it's a team fully autonomous, right? And across all the functionalities and responsibilities, typically 5, 6, 7, no more than that. And the goal is to manage this team without any communication barrier, right? So we could have the product owner the front office development, the back office, the QA, the Scrum Master, everything is part of the team, right? So this is the squad for DevOps. What are the chapters? The chapter is a very interesting aspect of the DevOps team. You could have a chapter that cross the different squads. The features for the chapter is that they have similar competencies, similar knowledge, right? So the value of the chapter is that they will be discussing about different situations into the squads. They will be sharing experience, and they will be promoting improvement for all the squads, right? And not necessarily going to a chief or going to no one. They will be directly talking from a specific skills or capability. As you can see here, people from front office will be discussing about how to improve the situation, and they will be applying similar things in all the squads. So we'll be promoting improvement for every squad. And the same for QA, right? You could imagine that someone working in, I don't know, in web designing will be sharing some information to traditional systems. All of them will be applying the same improvement, okay? And what are specifically the tribes? At the tribes, it's not really recommended to have tribes if you could manage everything into a squad. Why? Because we'll probably have some issues to promote the communication between the tribes. So for that reason, the recommendation is if you really don't have a large, complicated infrastructure, you could work directly with one tribe, but not with several tribes. And let me give you an example about tribes. Tribes could be applications in a company. They develop different type of application. It's a web application, desktop application, mobile application. However, everyone will be at the same tribes. However, you could have infrastructure here, and in infrastructure, you could have networking, you could have desktop development, you could have other type of infrastructure, servers, etc. over here. And the third tribe could be BPO, business process operation, that are completely different than infrastructure and than development. But if we don't have a huge difference between the teams are performing, you could work in one tribe, okay? And finally, the guilds. The guilds is a group of people who share similar or common interests. Doesn't matter the position where they are. So we have web technology guilds, for example, that are crossing different roles in a tribe and are crossing different tribes as well. So we can say that it's an open cross-horizontal organization group. So you can imagine the value to have these guild groups, because they will be discussing about different situation, issues, problem of the different squads, of the different roles, each other's, and producing good documentation and lesson learned. And finally, what are the crucial roles? And please pay attention on this, because these 6 roles are covering the 100% of all the activities into a DevOps structure. The DevOps evangelist, or the DevOps coach, you could name, you could call on the same way. It's DevOps coach or DevOps evangelist. Is responsible to implement, right? To help to implement the DevOps practices in the company, to transmit the value to implement, to be the interface between the different tribes, different guilds, to work with the upper management as well to push the DevOps implementation. And for sure to support individual as well. For that reason, is a coach. So this is the part of the soft or essential skill. It's covered by the DevOps evangelist. For the other role is the release manager, who will be coordinating all the deployment activities of the project. The automation architect is responsible for all the technical automation into the tool change, the DevOps tool change, and he or she will be defining the strategies to implement the different tools and to link the different tools existing and new one. The software developer and tester, you know perfectly that role. So again, they will be not only developer and test it, they will be the DevOps developer and test it, fully oriented to business and strategy. The experience assurance profession. Remember that if we are talking about to automate all the testing, that it doesn't mean that you won't have quality assurance. And the experience assurance profession will be the one that will be defining the main criteria to test. And they will be assuring that all the test cases are being applied on time and assuring the quality of the services. And finally, remember that I mentioned DevSecOps. The security engineer is the one that coordinates all the team members to ensure the security, because the security is not only in networking, the security is in the software users. The security is about to use the asset of the company. The security is about how we are managing the information. So summarizing, and my final recommendation, and sorry to go so fast because we have a lot of things to review, and I think that this conversation will be valuable for you only if we cover the most important part of the team structure design, and I really don't want to forget any important piece of the process. Finally, I would like to mention you what is the Center for Enablement. The C4E is an organization that transforms IT teams into a strategic business partner. Remember that I mentioned this several times during the presentation. The goal is to be business oriented, and the Center of Enablement is a group, it's a role. It's a, you could have some a Scrum Master, you could have some DevOps evangelist into the Center for Enablement. And they will be focused in have all the required assets, process, communication tools to make the IT team into a strategic partner. So that team will be creating, as I said, assets to capture everything what the team is creating and try to share that information, that tools across all the organization. So the C4E supplements DevOps and Agile effort due to collaborate team structure, which is finally the goal. So we are on time for questions. So I don't know if do we have any question in our window chat.
All right, so I don't think there are any questions at this time. All right, so this concludes the training session. For all the participants, we'll be sending a recorded version of this session. Lastly, thank you to everyone who participated, and thank you, Adrian, for taking us through DevOps organizational models design. We definitely look forward to our next training session with you.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. You know, if you have any question, I'm at your service. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day or the afternoon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.